Hi, everyone. Welcome again to Real Talk with Coach T, Unscripted, where we will have real but raw conversations for us grown folks. Hi, audience. Today, you guys are in for a special treat. We have Dr. Lakeisha McGee, and as you ladies know, and gentlemen as well, this is Breast Cancer and Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and that will be our topic today, the mental health of that, the mental wellness, the physical, some survivor skills, and more. Let me say that. Dr. McGee is a personal testimony and also has resources that lacks in our community. So I'm gonna let you take over, Dr. McGee, and give the audience some details about yourself and where they can find you.
Hi, thank you for having me on the show today. I am so humbled and grateful. As my wonderful host said, I am Dr. Lakeisha McGee. I am a therapist and I am a survivor. My breast cancer journey began in 2018, November. I was diagnosed with HER2 positive stage 2, grade 7A. And from there, life just changed as I knew it. I took on, I didn't have a choice, but to take on a new I don't want to say a new job, but that's exactly what it is. It became it became my job to make others aware of breast cancer, about early detection, about treatment plans, about being a survivor, about the ins and outs of breast cancer. I had to become the expert on what it is and how it works and what it do. So that's what happened. I have a nonprofit organization called Heal Her2 Foundation. Heal, H-E-A-L, her, H-E-R, the number 2 foundation. We can be found at www.healher2foundation.org. But my nonprofit is a nonprofit organization that caters to African American women. And the reason that is because when I was in treatment, I saw the struggles that other women were experiencing, the lack of resources, the lack of support, the lack of understanding, just the education around breast cancer in general. I also saw the mortality rate that we were facing. African American women die at 40% higher mortality rate than any other race. Wow. And there has to be a reason for this. So it became my plight. That's why it's not my job. It's my plight to share information and do as much as I can. I also saw that we lacked support. So my nonprofit offers a support group for women who are in the fight of their lives or have, transitioned out of therapy, chemo, but still are struggling with just the whole process because it does not stop once you are done with chemo. It continues on. Once you are diagnosed with breast cancer, believe it or not, you are affected by it for the rest of your life in some capacity. Yes. So that's where we are.
Yes, that is so true. As you being a therapist, right? I know people are like, oh, you already got the tools to get through this. I'm sure there was that misconception. And we got a chance to talk earlier a lot about the misconceptions of the road traveled through diagnosis, starting even with diagnosis and what does that look like after the diagnosis, and then once the treatment does start happening, and then as you mentioned, the aftermath of when, okay, I'm done with the chemo, now what? So I want to tap back into some of that, the misconceptions of, like, oh, you get diagnosed, boom, there's hope.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So one thing for sure is, yes, being a therapist does give me a little jump up as far as being able to have some coping skills in place. But the human side of me breast cancer affects me the same way as every other person. I'm a human being,
Right.
and I had to go through the same process, the grieving, the loss of my breast, grieving, now being diagnosed with a disease. The first thing I share with you today, the first thing that hit me once my primary care told me that she had the results back and I was breast cancer positive, the first thing that hit me was embarrassment. That was the first feeling that I had, was that
Wow.
I was embarrassed. Now, once again, here's the thing. Why was I embarrassed?
Right.
I've talked to other breast cancer survivors, other women, and they said that they felt that same shame. And the reason is because society has put on African American women this whole cape that we have to be super women at all time, that we can't even be sick in peace without feeling this sense of embarrassment. So the mental stress upon that, I had to get over that. Like, what, girl, what are you embarrassed about? You've been diagnosed with a disease that you have absolutely no control over. So, that took me through a process, but that was the feeling that I felt in the beginning when I was diagnosed, was embarrassment. The second feeling that came over me was the fact that I heard God say that all sickness is not unto death and that you will be okay. So at that moment, once I heard God's voice say that, I knew that this was just a test for me to be able to give this testimony to help other people go through this thing gracefully and come out on the other side, because you have to have a mentality that you're going to survive in order to survive. And you got to really know that thing and make sure for real, you're holding on to that thing. So I realized that was my new plight, is that I had to be the one to share my testimony, to go through this thing shining gracefully and come out ready to do the work to help other survivors come on, make it through their journey as well.
I want to pause right there with what you said. Right? You have to know you're going to survive, because the mentality actually ultimately leads you physically, literally, in how you're going to operate. But I want to speak to your spiritual side. Definitely helped you a lot. But I do know, and I'm sure you could be attest to this too, that some people, when they get diagnosed, they get mad at God. So they kind of walk away from that spiritual aspect. And then, of course, I'll speak to the non-believers as well. What would they need to do?
So honestly, believers and non-believers get mad at God sometimes. But the reality is that you come back to your senses as a believer and you say, okay, God has, he is in total control. He can do all things through Christ is possible. So you realize that and you come on back to your senses and say, Lord, forgive me. Okay. I'm hurt. I don't know what's going on. I just needed a moment. Now for the non-believer, the best thing that I can tell them to do is that you got to pull inside of you. You got to figure out something, whoever you believe in or trust, or, whatever you do for your solace, you're going to have to pull that inside of you and pull it on out. And you're going to have to walk with that thing, because you need to be grounded in seeing that you're going to be okay. Now, for me, that was God. For the other person, a non-believer, whoever or whatever that is that grounds you, you need that. Because if you have a negative mentality, if you have a negative inner circle, you're not going to make it. You have got to have that strong faith or strong belief that you're going to make it, and your circle has to feel the same way. That same positive energy has to flow.
Yes.
So a support group. I was going to say, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to tell, we talked about your blueprint to the survivor kit, and I would love for you to share the steps of what this up and coming book is going to be. But, the steps that we talked about, like, when that diagnosis come, boom, what these steps to put in play.
Well, the first thing we just kind of talked about that is that you have to come to grips with yourself that this is real, this is happening. And if I'm going to survive this thing, I have to know and believe that I'm going to survive it. I have to, I have to accept this, and I have to make some decisions about where I'm going and how this treatment is going to turn out for me. That's the first thing. The second thing is I would definitely suggest you changing your diet. Listen, I changed my diet so that I wasn't eating no sweets, no, my doctor. She laughed at me so hard because I stopped eating chocolate, coffee, anything that wasn't good. I stopped, and I was having headaches. And she said, Lakeisha, you cannot stop eating everything all at once. I said, girl, you a lie.
I know that's
You're
right.
a lie. So I had stopped eating. Yes, I had stopped eating chocolate and the sugars and the meats and the coffee. And she was like, okay, you do have to change your diet. I went plant-based 100%, and I just scaled back on everything. But she was like, but you got to do this in moderation. You can't just go cold turkey. I was like, girl, I'm going cold turkey. So I suggest, that you change to a plant-based or more healthier diet. And the reason is food is processed. Meat has hormones, estrogen, and all of these other things. And that's, for me, I had HER2, which is an estrogen-based breast cancer. It's fed, the breast cancer feeds on my estrogen. So for me, I needed to take any and everything out of my system that had estrogen in it, and any extra estrogen in it, it needed to be gone. So even so much so, when I went back to the doctor, they were shocked. They said my tumors had shrunk because once they did the examination, I had 3 or 4 tumors in my left breast. So they were going to have to take that whole breast, period, because it was too infected, I want to say. But when I went back after changing my diet to a plant-based diet, they said that the tumors had shrinked. They weren't gone, but they had shrinked in size.
Yes.
So, that's the second thing I would say, to do is focus on eating healthier, getting sleep. Stress attacks your immune system. And that's all cancer is. It's autoimmune is your body is attacking itself already. So you need your stress levels to be under control. So I would suggest you get some rest and don't let, anything stress you out more than what you can possibly control. Just control what you can. Next, I would definitely say, make sure that your support system is in place. You need a positive support system. Everyone needs to feel the same way that I'm going to make it. She's going to make it. And your circle has to feel that same way, Yes. So, those are the most, the top things that I would say to start working on. And then from there, of course, you want to educate yourself as much as possible on breast cancer and what it does and how it affects you and the different treatments and the different plans. You want to educate yourself on that. When you go to your doctor's appointment, take that book. I had a book every appointment that I went to. And if I wasn't taking notes, whoever went with me was taking notes, because every time I went, my mother was with me, my daughter, my sorority sisters, somebody went with me and they were taking notes if I wasn't. So you need those notes, because you need to know, because you're kind of in a cloud. So you're not remembering everything. You just, it's not possible at that time, to get that kind of news. It's life changing. You're not remembering every single thing.
No,
so definitely,
your mind is scared.
Absolutely. So definitely, make sure you're taking notes. And for those who go by themselves, because you don't have that person, definitely make sure you take notes. Make sure you ask questions. Make sure, you are the professional, the advocate, the expert on you, because nobody knows you better than you. Nobody knows your body better than you. So become the expert on you and ask those questions.
And I also suggest I'll add record, because, you can hear something and maybe not interpret it the right way. So I definitely suggest taking your phone. If you're not big on writing, just start recording the sessions. Most physicians will not care. And they shouldn't care anyway, but
absolutely.
Record. So I do got a question, and I think this would definitely help some of the ladies and gentlemen, I guess. What was something that made you go? Because most women who don't per se have like me, it's history in my family. So I went earlier than what's recommended just because of the history in family. But that's not necessarily, again, like you say, the as African American women, we're already, underserved in the medical industry. So sometimes we don't always go or advocate because we feel like already nobody's listening.
Right.
So,
So some of the things that you definitely would look for, the common thing is that you feel a mask in your breast. You feel something that, just don't sit right with you. You're like, oh, that shouldn't be there. If that happens, you want to go and get it checked out for sure.
mhm.
For me, my nipple was bleeding.
Oh,
my
wow.
my left nipple was bleeding, and I kept seeing this brown spot in my bra, and I was like, what is this? I'm thinking I didn't scratched it or I didn't done something. And then it dawned on me one day that your breast is bleeding, your nipple is bleeding, girl. What is that? So of course I went to Dr. Google and I did a little research, and Dr. Google said, okay, so either you have an infection and you're going to need surgery to get it cleaned up. Your ducts can be infected and you'll have to clean it out, or it's breast cancer. That's
Mhm.
exactly what Google told me. And I was like, wow,
Wow.
okay. So I knew it was one or the other, and I knew it was going to require attention either way. So this was in the summer. I was in Chicago, and anybody that knows about summertime shy, the Chicago summertimes are the best.
Yes.
So I was like, okay, after the summer, and I go back home to LA. I told my sister that I would, schedule my appointments and get checked out. And I did. I did that immediately when I got back, but that was like 2 or 3 months later. Now, here's the scary part. I would get a mammogram every August. The August before,
Mhm.
and the rest of the time, my mammograms had been coming back clean, and I had felt this knot there. And I'm like, the knot had been there, so why did the mammogram not pick it up? So what I've learned is I should have requested an ultrasound. We, as
Mm.
African American women, we have deep, dense breast tissues, and because of that, we require a mammogram, a ultrasound. So if you feel that you have dense breast tissue, which a lot of African American women do, request a ultrasound, because then the ultrasound will pick up what that mammogram did not.
Okay. So some of
So,
them, that's a good, let me just break this down to our viewers.
mhm,
So it could come back right normal, as you just stated. But as
mhm,
African American women, I'll use myself, right?
mhm,
Um, I do remember the time where they were like, "Oh, it's something's abnormal," so I had to go to something to do a second scan or something.
mhm,
And I remember thinking when it came back the second one and it was saying it was normal. It was just I believe the word was what you kind of said, like, "Oh, that's just the dense tissue," something they said
mhm,
to that.
mhm.
However, and thank you for educating me in this moment, that I probably should have or should actually request the ultrasound because even though it came back normal, they said it was just that, but there wasn't an ultrasound to dig deeper. So
Mhm.
basically, now, even if it comes back normal, because I know healthcare has these rules and regulations, right? Can a person still request, even though it's normal, can they still request a ultrasound? And I know you're not like the insurance expert, but
Right. I'm getting ready to say that every insurance carrier is different. However, you can request what you want as
mhm.
a member of that medical group. You can request it. Now you have to have your doctor approve it. So you have to say, I come from a family that has a history of breast cancer, or I have some concerns. I am having some soreness or some. You have to convince your doctor to get the approval for the ultrasound for you. And I know it shouldn't be that way, but you have to. Um, and the reason is because, especially for women with dense breasts, there's a higher chance of you getting breast cancer when you have dense breast tissue.
Mhm.
So
Wow, that's
you have
something new.
to. Mm-hmm. and this is according to the CDC,
Yeah.
that if you have dense breasts, you have a higher chance of getting breast cancer.
Wow, that's interesting. Because that's not something, I guess, that, we share a lot of tips, but that, again, particularly to the African American community, I think that's something that should also be in the forefront, that, we push that agenda as well. Like, hey, this is, known. So that could be right there where you said that 40% increase. That's probably right there, lack of knowledge, not having that part component. And, thinking, like you said, basically that almost to the year, basically you were normal, from your last one, but all along it could have been abnormal, but not knowing. So what stage was yours?
So I was 2, almost 3, because I had, it was 3 or 4 tumors in one breast. One, two, I think it was 1, 2, I think it was 3. And
Okay.
because of that, I was 2, almost teetering to 3. So what I was also told, and I said, you know what, let me make sure, I'm gonna make sure before I put that out there, is that cancer lies dormant in your body. That, I was told that the cancer probably was already in my breast when the mammograms were coming up clean, that it was
Mm-hmm.
already there.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think they said 5 years it can sit there dormant or something. So we have to
Wow.
be careful. We have to check ourselves out. We do.
And don't be scared to, I really feel like, because I know, even from a therapist's point of view, Black women, particularly more than any race, we're taught to be strong. And so we will not necessarily advocate for the things per se that are necessary for us.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we feel unheard or not validated, it's like, okay, well, I'll be okay. I'm okay. And we convince ourselves that we're okay. And it's something interesting that you said that even knowing what you knew, you still waited to even go get tested, which I
Mm-hmm.
do find a lot of us rationalize
Yep.
delaying going to the doctor.
And that's the worst. That is the absolute worst thing you can do, because early detection saves lives. It gives you more options. Early detection.
Yeah.
So when I pulled up about certain types of cancers that are more likely to go undetected, I am correct. It is breast cancer is one of them. And I do remember one of the women in my book, she said, her name is Free. She
Mm-hmm.
said that she went to the emergency room and she was having bad headaches, and she told them that she wanted a mammogram. She said it had nothing to do, her breast wasn't hurting, she had no lumps, she had nothing. And they refused to give her one. And I think she said she kept being persistent, and they finally gave her one because she said she felt like she had breast cancer, and she had it. It was no
Mm-hmm.
other reason. So it was there. So, you just have to be the advocate, and definitely if you feel something, if you feel like you having some symptoms, um, request, advocate.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Advocate like you would for your children, right?
Absolutely.
Yes. We advocate for everybody but us.
Yes. We will go to, we'll go through for our
Yes.
children. So yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And you're the captain of the ship. So, ladies, we are definitely encouraging you to advocate. Now, I would love for you to talk about or talk to the women, right? Because some people are really blessed to kind of have that support system. And then some aren't. And then, as you educated me, the misconception about once you start treatment, right? There is I called it a gap, but you called it, where they're doing a care plan, basically, between diagnosis and treatment, right? The physicians are doing something. I don't want to say they're not, but it's a care plan, action plan of what they need to do to start treatment. Um,
Yeah.
and for me,
So
I call it the gap.
yeah, I can definitely understand and see how you would say it's a gap, because I find out today we should be starting tomorrow. And in some people's head, oh my God, we should be starting tomorrow. It doesn't work that fast. Sometimes, like I explained to you that I delayed treatment for, okay, I found out November 7th. I didn't get anything done until January 31st. Now I'm crazy, okay, quote unquote, because I, mentally and emotionally, I was not going to be able to leave. I delayed it because I needed a plastic surgeon and my surgeon, a oncologist surgeon to be in there to do both the jobs. I could not leave the hospital flat. I needed to have my tissue expanders inserted, and that meant I had to have a plastic surgeon in the room to do that. Well, the plastic surgeon that I wanted, that was also under my insurance plan, he was not available until January 31st. So I delayed my treatment plan. Now, was that dangerous? Could it have turned out worse? It could have. But by the grace of God, as I already said, all sickness is not unto death. So I knew I would be okay. So in all essence, once you get your diagnosis, you're not going to start treatment the next day. I do know some people who've started as early as a week or two with chemo, or radiation, whatever the plan may be. But from the time you're diagnosed to the time you actually start, there are things happening. They're trying to figure out which chemo medication you should take, which plan should you go. You have to get your biopsy. Once the biopsy comes back, they need to know, okay, what kind is this? So what's going to attack this? Should we do chemo first or radiation first? Should we just go ahead and do a bilateral, or does she have to have a lumpectomy? So there's something taking place. It's not just, nothing. There's not just this, gap here. Then sometimes, women don't have insurance. So there does have to be, how are we going to get this done? What services or hospital or donations, or who can we get to pay for this surgery? So that does happen. And in that time frame, I don't like to say it's a gap. I like to say that they're focusing on the treatment plan for the lady or the man.
Right.
Because, breast cancer affects men at a 3% rate.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So, I'll just say why, from my viewpoint, why I call it the gap. It's because of the mental capacity. Because for me, like, the doctors are doing their job, so it has nothing to do with them as a whole.
Yes.
But I think the mental capacity, and, again, there's some lack of education when you aren't in the healthcare field or have experienced it, that you are, feeling alone. Like you said, maybe
Yes.
a support group. I definitely really am trying to start to advocate that you be assigned a therapist, and get in therapy soon as possible, weekly, because whatever it could be, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 2 weeks, that you have somebody to talk to, because even though you may have that support system, right, you haven't wrapped your mind around kind of what you even said in the beginning, mental or acceptance. So if you can't, get there, you certainly can't even really open up to your support group.
Absolutely. And I would agree. I would agree that once you find out, just depending on your status, where you are, what you are capable of handling at that point, ask your doctor for a referral for a therapist. You can definitely do that. You can call your insurance provider and tell them, hey, I need a therapist, and someone can get it. Or you can reach out to organizations such as mine, that we provide that wraparound services. And in that, we do have a support group where you can be with or talk to myself, who's a therapist, who's also a survivor, and also, be in a group with other survivors. It is definitely important to get some type of support via a therapist, via a support group. You need something.
Yes, totally agree. Now, let's move to that misconception that we were talking about, right? That when you're actually in, like, you started chemo, right? And there's this conception that, hey, you got all these people now at your disposal, so to speak, to help you along with your support group, right? So let's talk to that, because it may be some lady right now who's, in that or about to be,
So let me say this, and it varies from person to person, hospital to hospital, care to care. But for me, my own personal experience, I went to a hospital, which I'm grateful for. The treatment was great. They did their job. I went to a hospital as an African American woman with the staff there was one African American staff member there. She was a nurse that came some of the time. She rotated. Everyone else on my staff was not. They were other. And no one called me after my appointments to see how I was doing. No one called me to see if I need anything additional. There was no, and you said your team, they did their medical job. They gave me chemo. They took care of me while I was there. They did not offer anything else. Nothing. They did not say, do you need a therapist? Do you have a ride home? They did none of that stuff. So there was not a team, I'm sorry. Somebody with the loud. Can you hear that? I'm sorry. It was loud. Okay. There was not a team rallying around me to say, hey, this, that, and the other. Now, what would happen is if I had questions for my oncologist, Dr. Sarkisian, he would call me. He would say, Lakeisha, I checked into this and here's that. And he would call me sometimes, if it seemed like I was having a rough time, because I ended up in the hospital 5 days after my first round of chemotherapy. And, because some of the medications were really, really rough on me, he would call to say, hey, are you okay? If he knew that I left and I had a bad session, I would tell them, have him to call me or something. But as far as like this team that you would think that rallied, no, that wasn't that. No one was advocating for me. I advocated for myself. However, I'm sure there are other survivors who can, have a different testimony and say, oh my God, my staff was amazing. They advocated, they blah, they this, they did. That wasn't my story. So it's not 100% across the board that you're going to have that kind of team.
Oh, that's, so that was something definitely I think we needed to bring light to. But that does not mean you are alone, ladies.
Absolutely.
It means like really beef up your support because you are your best advocate. Yeah. You cannot you can feel your emotions because they are valid, but you can't sit in the narrative that you are alone, because then you will isolate and then you will make what you're thinking to believe to be true,
Right. And so let's talk about, let me skip over to home health care. So, and this is important for you to check with your insurance and even state insurance. If you are someone that's going through this by yourself or just need some additional support, there are resources through the state and possibly through your private insurance that will pay for you to get rides back and forth to your treatment. Now, I lived in California when I was, in treatment. So this is what was provided there. They paid for rides back and forth. They paid for homemakers to come and clean and take care of you and help you through it. My long-term goal is to have a house where women can come after treatment, women or men, and can come and stay for up to 2 weeks at a time so that they can have someone there. We can have a nurse around the clock to help them out so that no one goes home alone, because it's hard. Chemo is hard, and going through it by yourself is hard. So I just wanted to put that out there because it hit my mind that please check and see what your insurance allows and what the state insurance allows for you.
Okay, that's good. That's really good because you're absolutely right. Chemo is hard. Now, my mom passed away from esophageal, totally different than breast cancer. However, her her first round of chemo was her last round, actually. And it brought out, I don't know if you're familiar with Guillain-Barré, which was a dormant disease that was lying there, and the chemo just exposed it, which completely shuts down the nerve systems where you can't walk and, you become incapacitated, basically. And so she was at stage 4, unbeknownst to us at that time anyway. So chemo really wouldn't have helped at this time. But that was another thing. The doctors really didn't let us know that. It wasn't until we were at another hospital, which again, advocating really worked on my behalf and my mom's behalf for that, that I advocated she went to another hospital. And again, just by me working in, the arena of it, not the expert, but I'm like, this is kind of like, okay, something's just not right. Because the doctor did not let us know that it was stage 4, did not tell my mom, none of that. And by my mom kind of being that stereotype strong woman, she didn't really, talk about it or push to find out more. It wasn't until like I just stepped in and I had to take over because I was just like, this is not normal. Like, you shouldn't just, automatically, like, now you can't walk because of chemo. Like, I do know chemo is harsh, but I've never seen that. So that's how we, found out about the stage 4, which I ultimately really believe that allowed her to last longer because the care kind of changed. Being honest, like, so I do appreciate the second hospital, but I love the fact that we're talking about how much advocating really means, because it can change from a day to several months. That's how big of change can happen when you advocate,
Yeah.
But I love the fact that you're saying, hey, look what your insurances provide, because that's another part of me advocating that I knew she can go to another hospital and get second opinion. So that's what made me even think about that, that was an important part that, I knew, even if you don't know the language, people, you still can call. And I don't care if you feel like you're bugging somebody, you're fighting for your life. So it's irrelevant of what somebody feels like. And again, us being strong, sometimes we have to put our pride aside and remember, fight for your life, not about pride, not about what people, because sometimes we can get discouraged if, we feel shut down, or if we are made to feel like we don't know anything about this, or you're illiterate to it, whatever. It can, I have seen where people kind of shy away or shut down because they don't know what you're talking about. And I think that's important.
Yeah.
So thank you for bringing that up, because I totally even forgot, like, that was a part of my mom's journey,
Yeah, it is. So, there's another part to that too, is that, which is something that my nonprofit thinks about and provides services for, is the caregiver. The caregiver needs a break. The caregiver needs to be taken care of at some point in time, because when you're taking care of your sick, your, loved one, your loved one who's been put on hospice, or it takes a toll on you. So you, as the caregiver, you need to be pampered and poured into as well. And that's something that we don't think about all the time too.
Oh yeah, totally agree. Definitely. I definitely feel like caregivers are probably the most unserved, because we're focused on the person who's sick,
Absolutely.
so we forget, though, as caregivers, and me being a caregiver, me also working in hospice, I see both sides of it, professionally and personally, that it can become a lot. And you trying to be strong or appear to be will overtake you,
Mm-hmm.
because you're not advocating like, hey, I need a break, or figuring out how to even, get that break. So that's
Absolutely.
good that
It
you
is
guys
definitely important. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, so it sounds like you got a wraparound service.
We do. That's
I
what
love.
we kind of try to provide is wraparound services for women who are, and I say women because it predominantly affects women, but men as well. But we try to provide the wraparound services. We try to do support groups, care for the caregiver, help with transportation. If there's someone that you know that's in the middle of a breast cancer journey, we send her a pink box. We provide we focus on healthy eating and fitness. So we provide some workshops for that, along with some other things. But if you go to the website, www.heal, Heal, her, the number two, foundation.org, we are there. And we also accept donations.
Oh yes,
So,
yes, that is so important to know.
absolutely.
So for the guests who do not know what wraparound means, because I know sometimes we think words are simple to people who work in the industry, but
Yes.
wraparound means from beginning to end. So her organization starts providing you care from the day, or it sounds like you even help them to get to the point of like, hey, you may need to go take this mammogram. It sounds like you guys even do that, helping women to even educate themselves to go get the mammogram. But upon
Yeah.
diagnosing, it seems like you have that therapist, that support group, for those who may not have that, or who may not just be ready to even tell their family. You
We
have that.
do.
That's good. You have the
Yeah.
support system for the caregiver. You have the journey support during the chemo and post chemo, right? Because that's
Mm-hmm.
the other thing that we're going to touch on, because people forget, like, oh, just because I know we celebrate the cancer free, but in the mind of survivors, and you can speak personally for that, that's still never completely, healed in the mind per se.
So, a couple of things. One, when we say we provide that wraparound services, we try to provide whatever the person needs to survive, to get through the process. That's what we try to do, within the guidelines of the nonprofit, the services that we have outlined that we can do. We try our best to do that. I have many of times that I've had someone inbox me 3 o'clock in the morning and say, hey, can I talk? I just need to talk. And I'm like, sure, let's talk, because sometimes it's during the midnight hour that you just really, it hits you and you need to talk. So I've had, someone say, hey, can you talk to my doctor for me? I don't know the questions to ask. Can you please just, and I'm like, sure, why not? So that's what we try to do, what is needed, what they ask us for support with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because everybody they need something different.
Yeah. Great.
Um, as far as what was the second question? I'm sorry. What was the second one? Oh,
The post.
nope, I got it.
No.
Look, I was getting ready to say, see, this is a part of, I still have chemo brain. Like, I forget. I have to write notes, like tons of notes, because I do forget, because they have this thing called chemo brain, because, chemo wipes out all the good and the bad inside of
Mm-hmm.
you, and sometimes you have after effects. So chemo brain is one of the things that still I have after effects about. I also have neuropathy, because when they took out 8 lymph nodes in my left arm, afterwards now I still have the swelling of that, and it doesn't have the feeling. It's still numb, and this is now almost, I had the surgery in January of 2019. So this is
Mm-hmm.
23 and my arm's still numb. So that's something that I'll always have. I also have a little bit of lymphedema. That's when you have the swelling. in
Okay.
your joints, because I still take medication for another 2 years. And it creates aching in my joints and my knees, my hands. My legs would feel so heavy, like I can barely walk up the stairs with them sometimes. Of course, it's getting better, but it's still there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Sometimes, which, it happens that breast cancer, it kicks you into early menopause. I
Mm-hmm.
experienced that. So that creates I can do a whole segment on just menopause. That's a whole nother thing. You have hot flashes, and this is just due to the chemo, not the menopause. But there is just
Mm-hmm.
a plethora of things that happen after chemo that you didn't know about before. And some of these things make people say, oh, I'm just not going to do chemo because there's too many, risk factors after the fact or during or whatever. But, my thing is the biggest risk factor of not doing chemo is you die. I mean,
Oh,
if you don't
yes,
do
yes.
something, at least chemo gives me a 50% chance of living. And for me, living was my goal. It was my objective. So I did chemo. Some people feel differently, and that's fine. I not only did chemo, I also did plant-based and natural herbs and remedies as well. But I definitely
Yes.
did do the chemo and the radiation, and I would do it again if I had to because I want to live.
Amen. You do what you got to do to survive. Well, I love that you're talking about plant based because at my highest weight, I was 300 and I think 23 pounds, somewhere around there. And I went completely plant based, right? I had high blood
Mm-hmm.
pressure, all the high blood pressure, asthma had nothing to do with my weight, but it didn't help my weight.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, but the blood pressure, like, out of control. And as we know, you take medication for blood pressure, which also can lead now to dialysis because of the medication. Please
Correct.
do not stop taking your medication. Please don't,
Right.
because high blood pressure is the silent killer. However, going plant based helped me not only one lose weight, but it actually, I was able to, still being overweight or considered morbidly obese, I was able to get off of blood pressure pills because of plant
Mm-hmm.
based.
Oh, yes,
Um,
absolutely. Absolutely. Plant-based will reverse some things because food is for the nutrition of your body. So if you're eating healthy and eating the right food, it's going to do what it needs to do in your body. So you did exactly the right thing and it gave you exactly the outcome that it would. It made you get healthier.
Yes, and that is a testimony. So I definitely wanted to just share that even though I was still considered morbidly obese, I lost weight, but not a healthy weight. I still was able, which my doctor was even shocked because I was like, I am getting off. I am not a pill taker. I already have enough things that I'm just feeling like life elements are going to happen. So that's what I did. I told her, I said, I'm going to get off these pills. And she was like, okay, well, lose weight. That's of course all the solutions. If you need her, lose weight,
Yeah. I know a
but
lot of people
and that's fine.
that change their diets, and when they change their
Yeah.
diets and eat healthier, it it eludes the high blood pressure, it eludes achy joints, and because the weight goes off and now your body is feeling better, and it eludes a lot of those different things. So definitely diabetes. I know people who've gotten off of insulin because they changed their diet and now they're eating healthy. They're not putting the sugar and all of this in their body. So it definitely can make you better. Definitely.
Yes. Yes. So now we're close into the end, and I just want to really close out about how the post chemo, like, okay, you've had your year, you are in remission officially, though, right?
So
But that
officially they
feeling,
say 5 years.
right?
Officially they say 5 years and you are considered in remission from the chemo. I mean, from the breast cancer after 5 years. Um, in my mind, I don't know if I'll ever just be completely over it because once you've been affected by breast cancer, you're always somewhere in the back of your mind. And that's not saying that I don't have faith. I don't believe none of that because I believe all of that. But you still always, whenever there's time to go get that scan, to get that, you still worry in some kind of capacity, like what if there's something there, not that you want it to be or anything. You just like, oh, let's pray it's not there, I should say.
Right.
So that's life as a breast cancer survivor. You're surviving.
Yes. Yes. So what advice and what takeaways would you want our consumers to listen or get from you today?
Well, more than anything, I want women and men, if you have some concerns, to get your mammograms, to go get a checkup, to make your wellness your number one priority. Be the advocate for you because you know your body better than anybody else. You are the expert on you. Go get your checkups. Make sure that you are well. And then listen to your doctors, follow the advice. Now, I'm not saying you have to do everything that they say do, quote unquote, that's your choice, but listen to the information. And at least if you decide I'm not doing chemo, then you need to have a really good alternative to how you're going to survive.
Yes.
There's tons of research out here about treatment. So at least have a backup plan if you decide that you're not doing chemo. But listen to the advice of your doctors, change your diets. That stuff is so important, definitely. It's also important for us to share, to talk about our experiences and to share with other people so that we can help someone else. From your mouth to their ears can change their whole life. So share your information, talk about your experiences, talk about your experience at the doctor's office, talk about how and what you ask the questions, talk about it, share.
Yeah.
Those are some big takeaways for me is please do those things. Don't put your health on the back burner. Don't do like I did and enjoy summertime shy. No.
Right.
Now let's just to be clear, everyone. I am an advocate. I go to the doctor. My dentist, I go to the doctor. I don't put off things like that on a normal basis. I was just in another state. I was there for the summer. So that was like, okay, when I get home, I'll take care of it, which I did immediately when I got home. But I take care of my health. And my children. We all go to the doctor together on a regular basis. I don't care what it is, headache, dentist, foot, it don't matter. Skin, we're going. We see every doctor we have to see. So please understand that I was just in another state. I was there for the month or whatever for the summer. But as soon as I got back home, I took care of that because it is important. And not only that, your mental health, your mental muscle is just like the rest of you. It is a part of you that if you need some mental help, get it. It is another part of you that is sick. It's just like the rest of you that when you're sick, you take care of it. Take care of your mental health as well. Same deal.
Yes.
See a therapist. If you need some professional help, get the professional help you need.
And sometimes it's not even about, because, there's that misconception about mental health, right? That you have to be crazy. And I also tell my clients, therapy is not meant to be an instant solution for a crisis. Therapy is a lifestyle. Sometimes you just need that sounding board that has neutral viewpoints. Because sometimes, although our family, our friends, they love us, especially if you're in a position where you are usually the strong one or the head of the family or in a leadership position, it's not easy to be vulnerable, and that's fine. So you may not because, sometimes I know words matter so much to people that you just really may need that person because that's the space you need to be emotionally safe in. So it's not necessarily like that we don't think you can handle it. That's not it either. But everybody needs someone to talk to. Everybody. Even a therapist needs a therapist, just like a doctor needs a
Absolutely.
doctor. You know,
Absolutely.
I love your point
Absolutely.
about going to the doctor. There's a joke my grandmother has about me. She says, I swipe my insurance card like people swipe credit cards.
Hey, look, I'm with you.
Yes,
I'm with you. Do you hear me?
yes,
Listen, we've seen doctors that I didn't even know exist or I was like, oh, that's what they do. They check your hormone levels. They check your
yes.
everything. Do you hear me? Because it is important. It is
Yeah.
important.
Yes. Early detection for everything. I would rather, I always say, my doctor says sometimes I don't listen. And she says, so why do you come? And I said, because I'd rather you'd have the diagnosis and I could figure out the treatment. And she's always like, what? And I was like, because I need the diagnosis to figure out how I'm going to treat it. Now, I may go with your traditional way of treating it, and then I may have another way. But I need the diagnosis to know what I've got to do.
Listen, I rather know than
Yeah.
not know. I don't
Yes.
understand not knowing. I rather know. That
Yeah.
works for me. So
Yeah.
then I can make a sound decision about my care from there. But I'd rather know.
Oh, yes. And sometimes we are scared to know. So, the one takeaway that I have is although you may be scared, do it scared anyway, because you're
Absolutely.
going to be scared either way it goes, but at least be scared with the knowledge.
Absolutely.
And where can they find you at again?
So the nonprofit is Heal Her Too. So it's www.heal, HEAL, her, HER, the number two, foundation.org. It's the Heal Her Too Foundation.org. And my personal web address is www.Lakeisha, Lakeisha, McGee, MCGEE.com.
Yes, and it will be tagged when we post the podcast, which we will be posting this podcast by Tuesday, and I don't have Tuesday's date in front of me. Hold on, let me
Okay.
pull that up. Tuesday will be October 10th. We will be running specials on breast cancer and domestic violence awareness all
Oh,
this month,
I
just
forgot to
because.
mention my book. I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
I forgot to mention it because it's a great resource. So the book is called 12 Shades of Breast Cancer. It is an anthology with 12 survivors in the book telling their story. Sadly, two of those authors, the breast cancer came back, one after 5 years, and one, our only male, he had fought it the third time is the time that he finally lost his battle to, but it's called 12 Shades of Breast Cancer. You can get it on the website or you can get it on Amazon. This book is a great tool. Not only do you hear the stories, but you also have a thesaurus in the back that talks about diagnosis, talks about treatment plan, talks about surgeries and what to expect and medications, all type of things, just to kind of give you a toolbox to use. And I
Mm.
apologize for cutting you off.
Oh, no, you're fine. You're fine. Look, we're trying to get people the resources. That's what
Yes,
matters. Me
yes,
and you both
yes.
have the heart of caring and providing for people. And that's what, awareness is really all about. So I appreciate you, Dr. Lakeisha McGee.
Thank you
Your
so much.
insight was amazing.
Oh,
Amazing.
thank you. I appreciate
We
it. Thank you.
No, we appreciate you. You were honest, you were vulnerable. I think you are a wealth of knowledge because not only are you a survivor, you're also an advocate and you're also a professional. So you have the three tools, that really can speak to someone who's going through it, about to go through it, or who has been through it. And for you to share that with people is just beyond amazing, because I know it's not always easy. Again, as me and you talked about, the strong woman syndrome that we're embedded with. So thank you for being our guest today.
Oh,
we hope to have you on here
me
again.
I appreciate it. I do. And I would definitely be back.
Yes. All right.
I appreciate
have a good one.
Thank you. Thank you.
All righty. Bye, folks. We would love to say thank you today for tuning in with your girl, Coach T, Real Talk Unscripted. Remember, if you have a topic or you would just like to be a special guest featured on the show, you never know. So go to all social media platforms, T Hill Consultant. That's THILLCONSULTANT. And send us a message. Let us know your topic and your name, where we can reach you at. You never know, you may just be the lucky one. Until next time, have a good one.